What you call coldness is someone who's been left alone too many times. It's not indifference, it's the memory of abandonment etched into the skin. Every silence, every distant glance, isn't a lack of love, but a refuge built on open wounds. Coldness wasn't born out of nowhere. It's the consequence of a heart that asked for warmth and received ice. Of someone who cried out in silence and no one responded. Of someone who learned that showing tenderness meant exposing oneself to being hurt again. When you say, he's cold, he's distant, he's impossible to reach, you don't see that what you're touching is a wall of protection. That wall isn't arrogance, it's survival. Because behind every brief answer, behind every averted glance, there's an inner child who trembled too many nights waiting for someone who never came. Coldness is the language of those who were ignored. It's a language learned through hardships of loneliness. It's not that they don't want to feel, it's that they learned that feeling comes at too high a price. Do you know what it means to grow up with the constant feeling of being invisible? It means walking through crowds and not being seen. It means speaking and having your words lost in a void. It means knocking on doors that no one opens, and hugging pillows that never respond. That's why, when today seems distant, it's not a rejection of you. It's the shadow of yesterday speaking to the present. It's the memory of abandonment that is triggered every time someone tries to get too close. The cold you see isn't real, it's a disguise. An armor made of ice to survive in a world that was never warm. What you call coldness is actually a hidden plea, please don't leave me again. But that plea isn't spoken aloud, because he's already learned that vulnerability doesn't always find refuge. He keeps quiet. He withdraws. He hides. Because showing his heart has been synonymous with betrayal. And so, instead of opening up, he builds walls. Instead of asking, he closes himself off. Instead of crying, he keeps quiet. Do you really think someone is born cold? No. Coldness is a defense mechanism, a survival manual written with invisible tears. Imagine a child running into his mother's arms and finding an empty face. Imagine a teenager seeking approval and receiving indifference. Imagine an adult sharing his fears and encountering ridicule. That accumulation of emptiness turns to ice. Coldness isn't chosen, it's inherited from pain. It's the mark left by prolonged silences, broken promises, absences that weigh more than any presence. People often confuse distance with disinterest. But disinterest feels different, it's empty, it's total absence. The distance from someone hurt, on the other hand, is filled with internal noise. It's a cry that says, I care so much, I'm afraid. Because the cold it projects isn't a lack of emotion. It's an excess of repressed emotion. It's a heart that beats strongly, but locked behind thick walls. Do you know what it means to live in fear of closeness? It means to long for it and fear it at the same time. It means that every time someone comes close, the heart remembers the pain of being abandoned. And then, instead of allowing the embrace, it freezes. The coldness is only the surface. Beneath, there are raging seas. Beneath, there are volcanoes extinguished by shame. Beneath it, there's a soul that keeps asking itself, what did I do wrong to be left? That's the true source of ice, guilt. Believing that oneself was the cause of being abandoned. That one wasn't good enough, worthy enough, loved enough. And so, the mind repeats the same song, if I show myself as I am, they'll leave again. So it's better to be cold, distant, unapproachable. At least, abandonment hurts less. At least, it gives you control over when to let them in and when to close the door. Think about this, every cold person you know was once warm. No one is born knowing how to put up walls. They learned to do so when they saw their outstretched hands come up empty. Every time you call someone cold, you remind them that you're not willing to see what's behind the wall. Because behind that hard exterior, there is a soul that once blindly believed in love. Coldness is only a mask. The wound, however, is still there, waiting to be acknowledged. The pain of abandonment not only freezes, it also distorts perception. Those who have been left too many times learn to expect the end, even in the beginning. They believe that every hug has an expiration date. That every promise is accompanied by a betrayal. That every forever is really just a until I tire. That's why they don't smile easily. That's why they measure their words. That's why they keep their distance, because in their mind, the betrayal is already written, and the abandonment has already been announced. It's not a lack of faith in you, it's a lack of faith in look at yourself in this mirror. The coldness you see in the other, isn't that also your reflection? Because all of us, at some point, have learned to protect ourselves from pain. We've all built walls, some higher than others. And what you call cold in them may be the same ice you once placed on your own skin. Remember that time you closed yourself off so as not to suffer? That time you smiled on the outside but were broken inside. That time you said I don't care, when in reality it was burning you up inside. That was your ice. That was your wall. That's why this story isn't just about him or her. It's about you too. It's about everyone. Because coldness is a universal human response to the pain of abandonment. What we see in others hurts us because it reminds us of who we are or who we were. That's why coldness is bothersome, because it reflects our own wounds. The other person becomes a mirror of what we avoid seeing in ourselves. Those who appear distant show you your own distance. Those who remain silent remind you of your silences. Those who shy away from closeness confront you with your own fears. And so we discover that what we call the coldness of others is nothing more than a reminder of our own fragility. There is no harsher mirror than a wounded person. Because it harshly reflects what we refuse to accept. That's why sometimes, instead of approaching with compassion, we react with anger. He's cold, he's insensitive, he's heartless. But deep down, it's not hate. It's fear. Fear of seeing ourselves reflected in that distance. Fear of recognizing that we too carry walls, that we too have kept silent, that we too have hidden so as not to be hurt. The mirror of coldness teaches us something uncomfortable: no one is as warm as they appear. We all carry frozen corners in our souls. We all have closed rooms in our hearts, doors we don't easily open. What changes from one person to another is not the wound, but the depth of the cut. Some have scratches that heal quickly, others carry scars that never fully heal. And those scars, when they accumulate, become walls of ice. Look at yourself again. Have you never been tempted to distance yourself from someone you love, just to protect yourself? Have you not feigned indifference, when in reality you were dying to hug? Have you not preferred to remain silent, because speaking was too painful? That is coldness. That is what you judge in others today. The mirror does not lie. The coldness you condemn is the same one that once saved you. The same ice you once placed to survive. Life has a curious way of showing us what we need to heal. And often it does so through others. That friend who drifts away, that distant partner, that inaccessible relative, they are all mirrors that invite us to look within. Because it's not about changing the other. It's about recognizing yourself in them. About accepting that your wound also exists. About embracing the part of you that still hides behind the ice. Does the other's coldness make you uncomfortable? Ask yourself first, what part of me feels hurt by that distance? What part of me remembers loneliness in that gesture? What part of me yearns for warmth but is afraid to ask for it? The mirror not only reflects the wound, it also reflects the desire. The desire to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be loved unconditionally. What you call coldness is, at its core, a call for recognition. It's as if the soul of the other were silently crying out, look at me beyond my walls. See my pain. Recognize my story. And when you are able to look with those eyes, the mirror stops being uncomfortable and becomes revealing. Because you no longer see just a cold person, you see a human being who, like you, has loved and been hurt. The coldness of the other is not an obstacle, it is a teacher. A teacher who teaches us to see beyond appearances, who shows that true love begins when we stop judging and begin to understand. But understanding does not mean justifying. It's not about accepting abuse or carrying walls that don't correspond to you. It's about acknowledging another's pain without denying it, looking at the wound with compassion, remembering that that same pain was once yours. The mirror of coldness can be an opportunity. Either you reject and condemn it, or you embrace it and use it to grow. The choice is always yours. If someone in your life seems cold, distant, inaccessible today, think about what that person is showing you about yourself. Perhaps their wall reveals yours. Perhaps their silence reminds you of your unspoken words. Perhaps their distance points to the times you, too, ran away. The mirror doesn't deceive. What bothers you about the other is what you haven't yet healed within yourself. Coldness, then, ceases to be someone else's problem. It becomes a map. A map that points to your own wounds. A map that invites you to look within, to stop running away from your walls and start patiently dismantling them. And this is where the truth begins. Inside every cold person, there is a war that is never seen. A silent battlefield where two opposing forces collide, the desire to love and the fear of being hurt. It is a conflict that never ceases. On one hand, the heart beats strongly, yearning for closeness, dreaming of being hugged, of being truly looked at, of feeling human warmth. On the other hand, the mind repeats the same warning over and over: if you let your guard down, they will hurt you again. And so, the soul becomes trapped in an endless war. Whoever appears cold on the outside burns with contradictions inside. It's not indifference, it's oversensitivity. It's not a lack of feelings, it's a deep fear of letting those feelings out. Imagine living with a heart that wants to run toward the fire, and a mind that drags it back to the icy cave. That is the torment you call distant. The inner war is fought on 3 fronts. 1. The front of memory. Every past wound becomes a soldier in this army. Every betrayal, every abandonment, every ignored silence, rises like a voice inside the mind and says, don't trust, don't open the door, don't feel again. Memory is a ghost that won't be silent. And even if the person wants to forget, the body remembers. The muscles remember the cold, the skin remembers the absence, the eyes remember the dried tears on the pillow. The past never completely goes away. It hides in the present disguised as caution. 2. The front of desire. Because despite everything, the heart persists. It beats strongly, seeks warmth, yearns for company. The cold protects, but also suffocates. Armor saves, but also isolates. And on the longest nights, when no one is looking, the cold person cries inside, longing for what they fear most, to be truly embraced. This front is the most painful, because it shows the human paradox, wanting and fearing at the same time, seeking and fleeing at the same pace. 3. The front of guilt. Here the war becomes unbearable. Because it's not just about memories or desires, but about a cruel voice that says, you're the problem. You're the reason they left you. You're the one who doesn't deserve love. That voice isn't real, but it hurts as if it were. That voice becomes judge, executioner, and jailer. And the person ends up locked in a prison they believe they themselves have built. The inner war keeps you from sleeping. It doesn't let you rest. It's a constant noise, an echo that never fades. And from the outside, all you see is coldness. But inside, there's a field full of fallen bodies, of memories that weigh like chains, of stifled emotions, of guilt that bleeds even though it can't be seen. Have you ever wondered what it means to live like this? It's preparing a hug and withdrawing at the last second. It's rehearsing trust and aborting it at the first sign of danger. Living in an inner war is getting tired without doing anything. It's being exhausted from a battle that no one else sees. And the hardest thing is that most of the time, that war is fought in silence. No one asks. No one notices. No one understands. Coldness, then, is not a choice. It's the visible symptom of a heart waging an invisible war. A heart that once wanted to love freely and ended up surrounded by trenches. In that war, love becomes both enemy and medicine. Love is what is most desired, but also what hurts the most. That's why the cold person doesn't reject love, they fear it. They want it so much that they prefer to push it away before losing it again. Imagine this scene: an exhausted soldier, with scars all over his body, looks at a rose growing in the middle of the battlefield. The rose represents love. Beautiful, fragile, pure. The soldier wants to get closer, but fears that when he touches it, it will wither in his hands. This is how the wounded heart lives, desiring the rose, fearing to destroy it, paralyzed between hunger and fear. What you call coldness is, in reality, a pact with survival. An internal agreement: better not to feel too much, better not to get too close, better not to wait too long. That pact protects, but it also condemns. The problem with this war is that it has no winners. Memory always hurts, desire always burns, guilt always accuses. The heart is trapped in a cycle with no way out. And from the outside, people only say, "It's cold." No one suspects that inside that body there is a storm that never ends. No one suspects that every distant word is a trench, every evasive glance is a cry for help, every silence is a minefield. What you call coldness is a war that no one talks about. Because admitting it would be showing vulnerability. And showing vulnerability is what most fears. In the midst of inner war, there has always been a map. An ancient map, forgotten by many, but written in the memory of the wise, the philosophers, those who walked before us. That map doesn't promise the absence of pain, but it does promise direction. A path to avoid getting lost, a compass to guide the heart in the midst of chaos. The ancients knew something we forget, that the wound is part of the journey. That it's not about running away from it, but about understanding it. The Greek philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not things that affect us, but the interpretation we make of them." This means that the wound is not just what happened, but the way we continue to narrate it within ourselves. Abandonment marked us, yes, but it is our interpretation that keeps the scar alive or transforms it into wisdom. Jung spoke of the shadow, that corner of the soul where we hide what we don't want to accept about ourselves. And in that shadow, coldness often lies. Not because it's a defect, but because it's a mechanism we prefer to deny. But the more we deny it, the more power it has over us. Jung's map invites us to look the shadow in the face, to recognize that coldness is not an external enemy, but a part of us that asks to be embraced. Eric Fromm, for his part, said that the greatest act of human freedom is choosing to love even when there is the possibility of suffering. Because loving without guarantees is a leap into the void, but it is also the only leap that connects us with real life. Fromm reminds us that coldness is a self-imposed prison, and that freedom lies in choosing to open the door, even if we fear what might happen. The wise knew that the pain of loneliness is not healed with walls, but with bridges. Bridges to others, bridges to ourselves, bridges to what we hold sacred. That ancient map doesn't say, "You will not suffer." It says, "You will suffer, but you will learn to transform your pain into strength." And that is the key. Imagine you are in the midst of an inner war, surrounded by memories, desires, and guilt. The ancient map appears and whispers to you, "Accept your wound." Because denying it only makes it stronger. Look to your shadow. Because there is the key that unlocks the chains. Dare to love, even with fear. Because love is not the absence of pain, but the courage to continue despite it. The map doesn't give you a shortcut. It doesn't take you straight to the end. It shows you a process. A journey where every step is a lesson. Philosophy calls it wisdom. Psychology calls it integration. Life calls it maturity. Think about this: every wall you built to protect yourself must one day be torn down for life to enter. Every silence you kept to avoid being hurt must one day become a word for someone to hear. Every tear held back in secret must one day fall to cleanse the heart. That's the map, not to run away, but to transform. Not to deny, but to accept. Not to harden yourself further, but to learn to be vulnerable again. The Stoics taught the discipline of the soul. You can't control what others do, but you can control how you respond. You can't stop them from leaving you, but you can choose not to leave yourself. Abandonment hurts, but the true hell is self-abandonment. When you allow fear to separate you from your own heart, when you convince yourself that you don't deserve love, that's when you lose the battle. The ancient map teaches, never abandon yourself. That map also points to something deeper, that shared pain is assuaged. That coldness melts in the warmth of authenticity. That the inner war begins to fall silent when someone dares to say, I feel this way too. That's why, so often, the first step toward healing isn't monumental, but simple. Dare to speak, to tell your truth, to stop carrying it in silence. Coldness feeds on silence. Warmth is reborn in shared vulnerability. That's the map we forget, that we are beings made for encounter, for connection, for reciprocity. And that when we walk alone for too long, our hearts freeze. Not because they're broken, but because they're waiting for the spark of another heart to set them ablaze. Look around you. Every philosophy, every psychology, every spiritual tradition, deep down, points to the same thing. Human beings need to recognize themselves in others. Buddhism speaks of compassion, seeing the pain of others as our own. Christianity speaks of all-encompassing love. Humanistic psychology speaks of authenticity and unconditional acceptance. They are all paths that lead to the same place, opening the heart despite fear. And what about coldness? The map doesn't condemn it, it explains it. It doesn't say, you're bad for being cold. It says, I understand that you're cold because you suffered. And from that understanding, it offers a path back to warmth. Imagine this map as a beacon in the darkness. It doesn't erase the storm. The old map isn't enough to just look at. You have to walk it. And in that walk, something almost imperceptible happens at first, a spark. The first fire. That fire doesn't come all at once. It's not an immediate blaze that melts all the ice. It's barely a small flame, but enough to remind you that you can still feel warmth. The first fire is born from a tiny gesture, a sincere word, an unexpected hug, a conversation in which someone finally truly listens to you. That moment, however brief, opens a crack in the wall. And through that crack, light enters. And that light reminds you of something you'd forgotten. You are not condemned to the cold forever. Fire also appears in moments of honesty with yourself. When you dare to say, yes, it hurts. Yes, I feel alone. Yes, I'm afraid. That act of courage, however small, is a flame that ignites the heart. Because ice feeds on denial. Sometimes it comes from within yourself. From an intimate, almost silent decision to not let fear rule your entire life. That moment when you choose to take a step toward the other, even if your voice trembles, even if your body resists. That instant when you say, I'm going to try, even if it hurts. That's where the fire begins. It's not easy. Ice doesn't melt in a day. The inner war doesn't suddenly go silent. But that first fire changes the rules of the game. Because you are no longer alone fighting your memories, desires, and guilt. Now you have a flame that lights up the battlefield. Fire brings hope. The hope that life can be different. That love, though risky, can also be a refuge. That not every encounter ends in abandonment. The first fire doesn't erase the past, but it relativizes it. It's no longer the only truth. It no longer defines your present absolutely. Now there's another possibility, that of living without ice. That fire is fueled by small, constant acts, listening to the other without interrupting. Looking into their eyes without running away. Speaking an uncomfortable truth without fear of being rejected. Daring to ask for what you need without feeling like a burden. Every act of vulnerability is fuel that fans the flame. The first fire also appears when someone decides to stay. Anyone who has experienced abandonment too many times knows what it means. For someone to stay, to not flee at the first difficulty, is a medicine that slowly melts the scars. It's not that the coldness disappears immediately, but it begins to lose ground. The ice cracks. The wall reveals fissures. And through those fissures, heat begins to seep in. Fire doesn't just warm, it transforms. It transforms the memory of pain into a less poignant memory. It transforms guilt into self-compassion. And when that transformation begins, the inner war is no longer so fierce. The memories are still there, but they don't rule. Guilt still speaks, but it no longer screams. Desire is no longer so frightening, because now there is a flame that sustains it. That first fire is fragile. If left untended, it goes out. That's why it requires constant attention, infinite patience, and a true commitment to one's own healing. Sometimes we think that healing means reaching an endpoint. But no, healing is learning to keep the fire alive, to give it space, to protect it from the wind, to feed it with acts of truth, until it becomes an inner home. The fire grows stronger when we stop demanding perfection from others. When we understand that they too carry wounds, that they too built walls, that they too struggle with their own inner wars. Compassion lights new embers. Empathy breathes fresh air into the flame. Forgiveness, not as forgetting, but as liberation, adds warmth to the heart. The beautiful thing about the first fire is that it doesn't stay just within you. When someone sees it burning inside you, they are inspired to light their own. The fire spreads. The warmth spreads. And what was once a frozen land of walls and solitude begins to become a territory of encounters and embraces. The first fire doesn't immediately eliminate the coldness. But it shows that you are not a prisoner of it. It shows that, even in the most frozen heart, there are always hidden embers waiting for a breath of life. That is the miracle of fire, that a spark is enough to initiate a rebirth. A gesture, a word, a decision. Small, but capable of initiating an irreversible change. Your identity was always fire, it was always warmth, it was always life. When you light your first fire, you discover that you don't have to live with eternal walls. That not every hug ends in betrayal. That not all closeness is a prelude to abandonment. That there are people, and moments, capable it's about staying. And above all, you discover that you are capable of staying with yourself. Of not running away from your pain. Of holding your wound. Of accompanying yourself in your own cold until warmth is reborn. That is the first fire, an act of intimate courage, a small gesture of love, a truth spoken without disguise. And even if it seems little, it's enough to change everything. The fire has begun to burn. And when the first flame ignites in the heart, something changes forever. One no longer lives only in fear. One no longer breathes only ice. Now there is the possibility of returning. Not returning to the past, that no longer exists, but returning to oneself. To the place where life feels warm, to the place where love, though vulnerable, is stronger than the wound. Returning doesn't mean you'll never feel cold again. The cold will return in lonely nights, in arguments, in memories. But now you know that the cold isn't eternal. That within you exists a fire capable of withstanding it. That is the true return, not running away from pain, but walking with it and not letting it dominate you. No longer as punishment, but as refuge. It's looking in the mirror and saying, you are not insufficient. It wasn't your fault. You deserve warmth. Because for too long you believed you were unworthy of love. But return is about remembering that your worth doesn't depend on who stayed or who left. Your worth is intrinsic, unchangeable, eternal. Return is also about trusting again. Not in everyone, not in just anyone, but in those who demonstrate with actions that they stay. It's not about opening the doors wide to everyone, but about recognizing those who know how to care for your vulnerability. Trusting again is not naivety. It's wisdom. It's saying, I was hurt, but I am still capable of love. Coldness, then, ceases to be an identity. It becomes a memory. A memory that explains where you came from, but doesn't dictate where you are going. You are no longer the abandoned child, no longer the invisible teenager, no longer the hiding adult. You are now someone who crossed the ice, who looked at the shadow, who lit the fire, and who now walks back to life. The return is also toward others. Because when you learn to care for your wound, you discover that you can care for others. Those who once built walls, now build bridges. Those who once remained silent out of fear, now listen with compassion. Those who once ran away from love, now dare to offer it without guarantees. This return is not perfect. There will be falls, setbacks, cold days. But even in those days, you know something you didn't know before: ice doesn't define you. Fire can always be rekindled. And when you return to yourself with that certainty, life changes color. The world is no longer seen only in shades of gray. You begin to notice the nuances, the glimpses, the small wonders that previously went unnoticed. A sunrise is no longer just a natural cycle, it's a reminder that there is always rebirth. A hug is no longer just a gesture, it's medicine for the soul. A deep conversation is no longer a risk, it's a bridge to the sacred. What was once a wall of ice, now becomes a door. And that door, when opened, not only lets others in, it also lets your own light out. The return, finally, is to life. Because when you choose to return from the cold, you choose to truly live. Not halfway, not hidden, not paralyzed by fear. To live with all that it entails: risk, pain, joy, love. Because the heart was not made to freeze. It was made to burn, to feel, to vibrate. And although the wound of abandonment marked him, the fire of love redeems him. Therefore, what you call coldness was never coldness. It was pain transformed into defense. It was a soul seeking to survive. But now, upon returning, you can see the truth: you were always fire disguised as ice. This is how the journey ends, with the return to warmth, with reconciliation with your wound, with the certainty that you are not condemned to loneliness. Because even though you've been left behind too many times, you can choose never to leave again. Returning is not an end, it's a beginning. The beginning of a life where you no longer need to hide, where you can show your heart with dignity, where you can embrace without fear, where you can receive without shame. Returning is the true triumph. Because it's not about erasing the wound, but about learning to walk with it, without letting it extinguish your light. And then you finally understand, what you called coldness was always a flame waiting to be rekindled. Returning is not an end, it's a beginning. The beginning of a life where you no longer need to hide, where you can show your heart with dignity, where you can embrace without fear, where you can receive without shame. Returning is the true triumph. Because it's not about erasing the wound, but about learning to walk with it, without letting it extinguish your light. And then you finally understand, what you called coldness was always a flame waiting to be rekindled. And then you finally understand, what you called coldness was always a flame waiting to be rekindled.